Folks, welcome. I want to welcome all of our reporters who have joined us. Thank you so much. Yet another Alliance for Change press conference. We have with us Mr. Kemba Tramjitan, leader of the Alliance for Change. Yours truly, the General Secretary of the Alliance for Change. We have Dr. Vince Adams, an executive member of the Alliance for Change. We have also with us Mr. David Patterson, and another executive of the Alliance for Change, and we may be joined by other persons. Again, folks, welcome on this Friday, the 16th day of February. I want to go ahead and David a little bit as we start officially with some thoughts on the oil spill out of Trinidad and Tobago for reasons why that will become clearer to you as we go along. Folks, the Alliance for Change takes our country's nascent oil sector very seriously. From the role we played in the PSA of 2016, the best deal at the time, and the resulting largesse from that flowed from it, underpinning all of our current economic pursuits. The Alliance for Change views the stewardship of the Environmental Protection Agency over our country's patrimony also very seriously. As you know, the EPA is now a shadow of its former self. With that being said, the oil spill off Trinidad's coast is of interest to us in the Alliance for Change on many fronts. The spill was caused by a barge the Gulf Stream, overturned in the Cove Eco-Industrial and Business Park, Tobago, on February 8th. According to today's Daily Express in Trinidad, the AFC has dispatched its GS to the location to get a view of the situation. As you know, local stakeholders in Guyana have wrestled with its government and ExxonMobil to enforce and produce its evidence of the $2 billion parent company guarantee that safeguards our national interest in such a scenario. According to the Tobago House of Assembly and the Tobago Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, the oil slick measures some 48 nautical miles or 88 kilometers long and 0.13 nautical miles or 240 meters wide. The overturned leaking Gulf Stream was being towed by a tug, the Solo Creed. And today's Daily Express editorial noted Guyanese authorities have confirmed that the vessel was expected in Guyana, but never arrived. The editorial in today's Daily Express here in Trinidad has also indicated that the mystery continues to surround the ownership of the tug and barge, its behavior on its journey to Guyana, and the identity and fate of its crew. Ladies and gentlemen, the Solo Creed, that tug that was leading the vessel, is yet to be located. The affected area has now widened, moving into Grenada's territorial waters, and the Spice Island has in turn contacted the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency and other partners. It is also noted that the slick is approaching Venezuela's northern marine territory. An energy expert here in Trinidad, like many others, we have our own on the panel, have concerns with Trinidad's response to this event, the Trinidadian pace. One Paul Passard said of Trinidad, "We are too long at this game." How would Guyana fare with its weak institutions and overwhelming political interference in such a situation? Folks, with that being said, I want to welcome leader of the Alliance for Change, Mr. Kemba Tramjitan, and his statement, and then we will take Mr. David Patterson, and then we will take Dr. Vincent Adams to bring up the floor.
Thank you very much, Sherrod, and thanks for doing a wonderful job there in Tobago and in Trinidad. and we're going to get your reports when you come by. Thanks also to the reporters who have turned up this afternoon. And my statement will be dealing with the strike, the teachers' strike, and government's reaction to it. The appalling and permanent hostility from the PPP government to the Teachers Trade Union, GTU, is deliberate and with purpose. All the actions and statements of the government and its leaders point to a desire to break the back of trade unions arbitrarily seen as anti-PPP and to make collective bargaining a relic of the past. No doubt, it is to severely damage the power and influence of trade union and see trade unionism and to see its precipitous demise. Declining unionization will mean, as has regionally and internationally been proven, the decline of worker representation for increased remuneration and a worsening of conditions of employ. This ultimately brings inequality, tilting the playing field strongly against labor and in favor of capital. The AFC wants to remind the PPP that higher inequality does not lead to faster growth. Workers, in this instance teachers, who are so poor that they cannot cater for their basic needs, are not going to be as productive as they ought to. What Guyana needs more than anything else in the labor front are muscular unions at this time, as the PPP used to preach and practice via GAU and NACI. Vibrant, robust unions and memberships always extract higher remuneration and better conditions, which Guyana, by the way, can now afford as a result of the oil bonanza made by and available as a result of the coalition government signing of that production agreement. Without this muscularity, there will be a race to the bottom for all workers. At this time, multiple vulgarities being uttered against the trade union movement by Vice President Jagdeo and his argument against increases as demanded by teachers means that the question that the VP needs to answer is not how can we afford it, but how can we afford not to do it? The AFC fully supports the teachers of Guyana in their struggle for a better deal. They cannot survive, as the little girls sang on 6.5. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ramjajan. Folks, I now invite Mr. David Patterson for his statements. David?
Thank you very much, Sherrod, and good afternoon to all. I would make a statement as well on the oil spill. The Alliance for Change has noted ongoing challenges being experienced by our neighboring island of Tobago due to the devastating effects of an oil spill. Media reports indicate that the source of the oil spill is a capsized barge or ship reportedly heading for Guyana. Despite the fact that Trinidad and Tobago has been an oil-producing country for over a century and has dealt with major oil spills in the past, the country is still struggling to contain this recent oil spill. This unfortunate event should be an additional wake-up call for Guyana. Guyana is currently producing 3 times the daily volume of oil versus that of our sister country Trinidad at its peak, thus resulting in increased risk. It is time that Guyana puts in place a comprehensive oil spill plan backed by provisions of adequate resources and equipment, as well as ensure that operators of all our oil blocks have in place full and unlimited liability coverage. The Tobago oil spill has now spread to neighboring countries of Grenada and heading towards Venezuela. Having in place unlimited liability coverage not only covers the costs associated with the immediate oil cleanup efforts, but will also include the short, medium, and long-term costs associated with the damage to these countries' tourism and fishing sectors. The AFC will be monitoring the effects of this oil spill closely, including the final cleanup costs and associated claims. This will be a suitable comparison for adequacy or not of the current $2 billion claimed to be in place. Noting, and we note, that this event only represents an oil spill of less than 20,000 barrels. That's the estimated number so far. Guyana is currently producing over 600,000 barrels per day. So you can be, the comparison can be made how devastating if a leak happens, if a oil spill happens in Guyana. Thank you. That's that. And I would like to make a statement on the Carifesta Avenue lands. The Alliance for Change has noted that the government is in discussion with a company from Qatar, or Kuwait, Qatar, to dispose of lands on Carifesta Avenue, namely the GNS and the NIS grounds. Irrespective of the fact that the ownership is under dispute, whereby the City Council is also claiming ownership, as well as the fact that the City Council is claiming that the covenants of the transport designates that it should only be used for recreational purposes. No information has been made publicly available on either the government's much vaunted urban renewal plan or the process of transferring ownership, if proven, to this company. The Alliance for Change is demanding that any state land, particularly in prime locations, be done in an open and transparent manner. Please recall that several officers under APNU-AFC government has been charged for allegedly disposing of state property at what the government claimed were values below market value. Any claim by the government that the value of these lands has been set by the valuation department should be taken with a pinch of salt. All previous values set out by this agency has been disputed, notably for the acquisition of lands for the Gas to Shore project in Wales, as well as those for the new Demerara Harbour Bridge acquisition lands. These values that have been established by the valuation department have been challenged as unrealistic and should not be the determinant for the value of transport. Current market values is determined by what the market is willing to pay, meaning the cost that persons who are willing to purchase the property, what value they would pay. Recall that in the case against former Minister Winston Jordan, the government claimed that the 2 acres of land that was disposed was valued in excess of $5 billion. We would expect any valuation coming out of the valuation department or any sale for land that is 2.5 size that of what was allegedly sold on the value by Winston Jordan would of course attract a multiple of this valuation, which they publicly claimed and publicly carried that officer to court. The land is approximately 2.5 size that of the road. So we await the process in which the disposal of this land will be done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. And now invite Dr. Vincent Adams to make his contribution.
Thank you, Sherrod, and welcome to all of our listeners and our media.
Right ahead, Doc.
Yeah, you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Good. Sorry. Yeah. I also am gonna want to address the Trinidad and the Tobago oil spill, because I think this here is things happen for a reason. And as David said, it's hopefully it's an eye opener for the Guyanese folks, because we have been raising these issues from day one, and I know even in Parliament it's been raised, and the government has just been ignoring us. Things happen for a reason. As a matter of fact, this year could have, even the Prime Minister himself said that this year could have been much worse if this location had shifted just a little bit. It would have gotten into the bay and everything else. With this small quantity compared to the kind of oil spill that we have got to be planning for in Guyana. But what is most troubling is I looked at the Vice President's press conference yesterday, and he was basically mocking folks, saying, well, he hadn't been hearing anything from the environmentalists about unlimited insurance or parent company guarantee. I mean, it was so callous and irresponsible. In effect, what he was saying, well, so it's okay for us not to have a parent company guarantee, because now the government of Trinidad and Tobago have to cover this. So we accepted that. Now, how foolish could that be, to make such and irresponsible to make such a statement when we talk about billions of dollars involved here, and and the government of Ghana, our entire budget is $5 billion. So the whole issue behind the parent company guarantees that we cannot afford to cover an oil spill, which could run the BP oil spill was $146 billion US. Now, the one thing that the lessons learned here too is the chaotic situation that Trinidad has found itself in today. There's an oil spill contingency plan. I think it was 2014, and according to the news release, and one of the things that is coming out here is that it's not it's not working. It says, for example, that Petrotrin, which is a Trinidad company, is supposed to be having these booms. They don't know where they are. BP is supposed to be having booms. They don't know where they are. So even the oil spill contingency plan is not working how it should be working, which is something that I and others have been raising. We do not have an adequate oil spill response plan. As a matter of fact, when I was at EPA, we refused to sign it. It's developed by the CDC, and EPA refused to sign that response plan because it was totally inadequate. And that's what we're working with. There's no type of, when you have these type of plans, you're supposed to be doing exercises so that when something happens, everybody knows who's supposed to be doing what. And we've got a coastline of 270 miles. We've got local folks who are supposed to be getting involved. None of that is happening. So that's the lessons learned. If something happens, it's going to be very chaotic. The vice president veered off now he started saying, well, look, at least we're in a better position with this $2.6 billion, which is the $600 million that they're supposed to have in insurance, and the $2 billion that they're supposed to have in parent company guarantee. Well, nobody ever knows where, if that exists, because if you recall, in the Judge Kisuan's ruling, the judge said in her ruling that even the insurance, the $600 million that they were claiming, the judge said that the insurance has not been obtained by the permit holder from an insurance company of standing that equates to a grade A plus. So we don't even know if we have the 600, and of course now they can't even show us just 2 billion. So nobody knows if anything exists. But and here let me give the media caution, because I see we going down this rat hole. It is not about the $2 billion. That is not what this issue is about. It's about the unlimited parent company guarantee. That $2 billion was just a hold until the appeal is heard. So don't let us go down this rat hole. That's what the government and Exxon wants, is to limit that parent company guarantee to $2 billion, which is totally inadequate. It's to drop in the ocean if we have a spill. Then the vice president goes on. He says, well, in addition to all of this, we've got we can liquidate assets from Exxon. But that's a bunch of baloney. I have attacked this in the past. And he talked about the $20 billion asset. All of those assets belong to the government of Guyana because it's paid through cost oil. So it's foolish for us to say that we're going to liquidate our own assets to pay for these things. I'm giving the impression that, well, we can seize it's absolute nonsense. The vice president and others who are saying this, they should go read the contract. Now, what the contract says, those assets belong to us, and at the end or termination of the contract, it will be turned over back to us free. It's our asset. So stop this nonsense about this $20 billion asset. The other thing that he talks about, and now is becoming his favorite topic, as if it's some big accomplishment, is the capping stock. Well, it's for the first time we've got the capping stock in Guyana. That doesn't mean a thing. Myself and Dr. Baino, who was in charge of the energy agency, we met with Exxon and forced them to get that. The capping stock is a big piece of heavy equipment that was developed after the Macondo spill. It's between 50 to 100 tons, where you get it to the site if you have a blow and put it on top of the well and like a lid to stop So the objective is to get it to the site as soon as possible. Myself and Dr. Baino forced Exxon to get it to the site within 3 days. And the only way we could have done that is from southern Trinidad. We couldn't do it through Guyana with the logistics and everything else. So that's why we told him in the meantime, look for a way to get it to Guyana if we can do better than the 3 days. So this whole nonsense about the vice president, every day he's talking about the capping stock is filing Guyana. Do you know what we put the requirement for 3 days? Do you know what this current government did? They went and changed that condition to 9 days, which means that they've tripled the deployment time of that capping stock getting to the site, which is an extra 6 days if there is a blow, an extra 6 days of flow of oil into the Gulf. So when he talks about this, not about getting it to, about putting it in Guyana, it's up to, I don't care where it's at, it's about getting it to the site as soon as possible. And so he continues, then he says, well, environmental protection and food security are the two pillars of the national approach. Now, how could the environmental protection pillar be a pillar when you triple the capping stock deployment? How could it be a pillar when you remove the requirement for reinjection of water? We had where the water, the toxic water that is produced, we had a requirement where you had to re-inject it. They've changed that now to where you're dumping it into the ocean. And by the way, it's going in with a lot of oil. That water has, for every 1 million barrels of oil, of water that you're dumping into the ocean, it's going with it between about 30 to 40 barrels of pure oil. And if you do some raw calculation over the life of the field, you will be dumping hundreds of thousands of barrels of pure oil with that water that you're dumping into the ocean, rather than injecting it, which is what the international standards call for. How could environmental protection be a pillar when when the government have Exxon operating 30% above the safe operating limit as required in the environmental impact assessment, which is dangerous. How could how could the environmental protection be a pillar when you're changing requirement from zero flaring to allow for unlimited flaring as long as Exxon could pay for it? And how could you, of course, talk about the environmental protection be a pillar when you do not want Exxon to have a parent company guarantee to cover any type of spill? So, so those are the things that came out of this press conference that I think the media ought to be asking some very, very serious questions here, because I think it's total disinformation or just deliberate untruth that is being fed to the people.
All right. Thanks very much, Dr. Vincent Adams. Folks, I think you get you understand that this is not no walk in the park. I was knocked off a little bit. I don't know if Dr. Vince covered it, but this spill in Trinidad started on the 8th, between the 7th and the 8th, and it is still ongoing. We haven't been able to plug that leak in the vessel up to now. This is no walk in the park, and Trinidad, as we've been discussing here, has been at this for a very long time as an oil-producing country, and with its master plan in place for such scenarios. I would like to invite any questions we have now from our journalists. Go right ahead.
Sherrod, just before you
go right ahead.
I just wanted to update something with somebody just actually. I mean, the lands, Carifesta lands, are, as I said, are larger than I said. It's not 2.5 times, which would have made it about 8. It's actually 13 acres of land proposed to be disposed of, and which obviously you can do the maths. If the 2 acres that the government has alleged that was sold to BK was worth $5 billion, you can do the maths to say that this here is 6.5 times that size. So obviously the prices should be commensurate with that size, because it is technically waterfront land. Thank you.
Excellent, David. Folks, any questions? I see Adam Harris's hand, and then Trina Williams. Go right ahead.
Yes, good day, everyone.
Good day.
I want to look at the oil spill. No, they were able to locate the barge, and I saw a name on this barge. Isn't there a record to trace the owners of the barge? The tug, we say, is missing. The tug had to leave a port. Wouldn't there have been a record of the name of the tug, which I think you, Sherrod, said you know? But wouldn't they be able to trace the owners of these things? And this oil is coming to Guyana, which is producing oil. Who would want to ship oil to Guyana?
That's part of the mystery, Adam. That you're absolutely correct. Those are the first questions that anybody asks. Well, okay, this ship, this boat, you know it. First of all, its origin. It's coming from St. Kitts, and it's coming to Guyana. As a matter of fact, the vice president said in his press conference yesterday when he was asked. As a matter of fact, he went on to insult the guy who was asking the person who was asking the question to try to make them look foolish. But the thing is, leaving St. Kitts, it's coming to Guyana. There has to be manifest with whatever products is coming in there. There has to be a manifest. So that is the mystery. Over a week now, you cannot tell me that nobody. And the vice president said, "Oh, me, I don't know anything about tape coming to Guyana." So the questions that you are asking there, those are the mysteries as to why this should have known immediately after that spill. It should have been known exactly the origin. And here's the other thing. Nobody is really sure as to what that liquid is. It looks like crude oil. But you ask the right question, why would crude oil be coming to Guyana? We don't have a refinery. So the mystery is nobody knows what that fluid really is, you know. And so you've asked the right questions that it's I cannot believe that we don't have answers for.
Adam, I want to tell you that the international and regional bodies that have powers of knowing what the manifest is for every ship that traverses the region ought to be of some assistance here too. Because when I was public security minister, whatever ships are out there, especially if they have their coordinates to be known as to where they're out there and so on, the Coast Guard of Trinidad, Barbados, the maritime section of their police force will certainly know and ought to know that is. And so it is a mystery that since the 8th to now, today is what, the 5th, the 16th, 8 days ago, we seem to still be in suspense. Someone seems not to want to share the information. And generally, before a boat lands in Guyana, they generally will forward that a boat and a barge is coming in with whatever cargo or passengers and things like that. And they were supposed to make it within a 2 days period. So they should have something in Guyana here, or give a good explanation why Guyana hasn't gotten it. Because there are certain procedures within these institutions for knowing whether it is a Venezuelan ship so that they will block it before it comes in, or what kind of ship and so on. And whatever, if it is bringing in nuclear material, it can't enter the zone of Guyana and so on. All of that. So that is why they have an obligation before they arrive into our zone to send in their information.
As a matter of fact,
and just let me, Vince, sorry, just let me add a bit of the technicality on that. If it is, as seems apparent now, if it is fuel, crude oil, that oil is coming into Guyana, and if it was heading to Guyana, the importer of that crude oil or any fuels would have to have a license with GEA. You would also have to apply to GEA prior to coming here for it to be tested, because all fuel comes in. It has what we call marking. They call fuel marking, whereby the GEA puts in a fuel marker in it. So the mere fact that we're taking 8 days, and the mere fact that no one is and we haven't Guyana, we're on the assumption that it is heading to Guyana. The Guyana agency has not said who the oil was consigned to, is a question, or should be a question of concern to all Guyanese. That's if it is proven for sure it's heading to Guyana. Plus, in addition to that, we have implemented, I think there's the GRA has implemented the system, I think it's a PID, I can't remember the name, whereby you send in your documents prior to landing and discharging, so that you can have these things pre-cleared, and that holds true for fuel, unless you, and then of course if you have a duty-free concession. I want to also highlight that there are very few companies that would use Vince says Bunker C, is it Bunker C oil, namely GPL. Heavy fuel oil, GPL, is one. Off the top of my head, I'm not sure whoever, because the other large producers generally use diesel, which is and Bosai, which is the second largest, they use diesel because obviously I can recall that. So the users of Bunker C or whatever HFO in Guyana is a very, very small group. So all you have to do is simply go to the 2 or 3 agencies that use heavy fuel oil, and you'll be able to trace the source. Thank you.
Yeah, David covered what I was, part of what I was, in terms of Guyana. If it's coming, this ship is supposed to be coming to Guyana with the product, we would have known. And there's a process that there's a process that we have. Even the EPA was involved when I was there, depending on what the material is. So David covered what I was about to say.
Quick follow-up then.
Adams.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Adam.
Sorry. A quick follow-up then. I am getting the impression from the answers I got from Mr. Ramjitan, Mr. Patterson, Mr. Adams, that the information is in Guyana. The suggestion or the inference is that the Guyanese authorities are aware. Would that be a correct inference?
If the fuel, I don't have to be clear, if the fuel vessel with the fuel is heading to Guyana, the answer to that is yes. Right? Obviously, I mean, the Trinidadian authorities has said out it is heading to Guyana. I mean, MARAD as well. Every ship that enters our EEZ, and this is since the even more in track. When I was there, would have to report. They all have a locator. I can't remember the name of it, and the boathouse would track these vessels. That's how you know if a vessel is in distress and so forth. As long as you enter the territorial waters of Guyana, you have to report. And this was made clear, and I could give you an example, because when Exxon initially started, they were being supplied by Trinidad, if you could remember, and there was a big Euro by GRA, by MARAD, and Ministry of Foreign Affairs, whereby some of the transit when they were transiting between the SPSO and other drilled ships at that time was not reported. Former Minister Carl Greenidge closed the boundaries in the sense that registered with IMO, these are the boundaries of Guyana. I can remember adjusting the regulations, which MARAD adjusted the regulations. I think Ministry of Home Affairs was involved in it.
That's right. Public security.
Public security was involved in this process as well. And it is mandatory that any vessel that enters in the territorial waters to have certain
announce their presence,
have identify a locator and those things on. I mean, and I'm sure it's the same in Trinidad and other countries. So therefore, obviously, this vessel, if the desire is there, can be traced.
Let me add, just to add to your line of questioning there, Adam. As David says, the answer is yes, if it was coming to Guyana. And if it was coming to Guyana, for the vice president to say yesterday, again, this is assuming that it was coming to Guyana. If it was coming to Guyana, for the vice president to say yesterday that he didn't know anything about it, that would be totally a don't care attitude. This here is not important. How could something like this not be important if they know it's coming to Guyana? After 7 days, you have not looked into it, or there's something to cover up.
That's right.
It's either they're covering up something, or they just don't care, and it's of disinterest to them. It's either one or the two, and I think the media ought to go along those lines of questioning.
Trina, you're up.
Hi, good afternoon, Trina Williams, Guyana Chronicle. I have two questions for Mr. Ramjitan. Firstly, Mr. Ramchitan, do you believe that Mr. Norton will allow the AFC to contest as a partner in the 2025 general and regional elections? I'll allow you to answer that, and I'll ask my second question. Thank you.
It is the AFC's decision as to whether we contest with APNU as a partner. It is not Aubrey Norton's decision. We, on the last occasion, went into a coalition because we consented to doing that. I rather suspect that the partnership will be discussing these matters at the appropriate time when elections are called, and we will make our decision. APNU will make its decision, but it's by consent of the AFC as to whether we go into a partnership.
Okay, thank you. And my second question is, can you say why MP David Paterson did not present during the budget debate? Is it true that he is upset about being removed without consultation by Mr. Norton from his previous shadow portfolio?
Let us hear from the
I'm here, Karen.
I can see the headlines out of Chronicle.
Sorry for laughing. Miss Williams, I'm here, so you could have directed that to me. Absolutely no truth whatsoever. I was previously scheduled. Let's be honest, the budget was expanded. We anticipated the budget would have been read on the 22nd of January. And of course, it came up on the 15th of January. I was previously scheduled to be out of the country for I don't want to get into it, but for personal reasons, which could not be changed. So I returned and that was it. So I returned on the Friday, which is the last day of the budget. I could not change it because, I mean, obviously, you have to book these appointments, and it was previously booked way before. So absolutely nothing to do with the decision. So, but you know what I mean, that is true, and that's a public, and I've stated it publicly before. I'm surprised that you would ask this a month after. There you could have rang me, Miss. But so absolutely nothing to do with being upset with any portfolio. Absolutely nothing to do with just I was unavoidably absent. I was there for the examination of the estimates. I'm glad that you missed
Trina, it is important for you to understand. We need to know why Jagdeo is not in Parliament for the budget and for estimates and all of that.
Is it because he's upset with something Ali did?
I suppose that is the reason. Yeah, must ask him, Trina.
I'm 14 times more upset because I think it's 14 days he hasn't showed up.
Yes.
But I'm glad you missed me, Trina.
Any other questions?
Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you so
Any
much
other
for your
questions?
response. No, I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
And thank you, Trina, for your questions. All right. Any other questions? I see we have MTV. Any other questions? If not, folks, we want to thank you guys for joining our press conference again today, February 16th. It was a pleasure having you as per usual.